Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Concern over interdiction of NEPA building inspector. UWI lecturers stage solidarity demonstration. And later in sports, Craig Brathwaite calls for more tests for Wendy's team. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Lecturers at the University of the West Indies, Mona, took industrial action on Monday as the compensation review scheme for staff intensifies. The union representatives described today's activities as a show of solidarity that the process is picking up pace and to put pressure on the government to act in the best interest of the university. Kelisha Williams reports.
What we need, solidarity. What we need, solidarity.
It's the first day of the new semester and lecturers at the University of the West Indies are already making it clear that all is not well. It comes as the university's salary review negotiations get underway. For President of the West Indies Group of University Teachers, WIGUT, Professor Paul Brown, it was not really a protest but an act of solidarity.
We want a better UWI that is financially secure, because as it stands now, there are some challenges, especially in relation to the finances of UWI. And so the compensation review is one aspect of that, because it is a challenge as it stands to recruit and retain quality staff at UWI.
For instance, he explained that lecturers and medical officers at UWI are earning way below their colleagues in the public sector. And he stressed that if UWI is not funded properly, Jamaica's Vision 2030 goals may be at risk.
And we think that UWI is best placed, and this doesn't in any way put down any of the other tertiary institutions in Jamaica, but UWI is best placed to assist in fulfilling those goals to ensure that a certain percentage of Jamaicans are educated at a higher level.
We were also told that a committee has been set up by the Finance Ministry to review the salary negotiations. Professor Brown is hoping there will be a favorable outcome.
We had asked for an interim payment, and we had set at 25%. So that is part of the remit of the tripartite committee. So by the end of this month, next week, we will have a final determination where that is concerned. That would be in the next budget, in the upcoming budget, which will be tabled in March. And then the larger picture will be the start of the compensation review for you.
Kelisha Williams, TVJ News.
The opposition People's National Party is again accusing the government of stealing its ideas. While addressing party supporters in Hanover, the PNP took aim at the Andrew Holness-led administration, blasting them for what they describe as the mismanagement of the country. Our reporter Anthony Logg was in Hanover and filed this report.
The political atmosphere has been intensifying ahead of the imminent local government election. Both political parties have been rallying their base for one of the most highly anticipated elections in the country's history. On Sunday, members of the People's National Party came out swinging at the Andrew Holness-led administration.
Him said better health care, but yet still people still asleep in the passageway, on the benches, on the floor. It is worse under his administration.
We have to say that labor rights are wreck it, and before we make them wreck it, we have take it. We have to take our country.
Hanover is one of those parishes being eagerly watched. During his address to supporters, party leader Mark Golding, while outlining some of the issues plaguing the country, sought to explain the importance of the impending local government elections.
This local government election is a referendum on the government. The people of Jamaica want to see whether the PNP can deliver a victory. And if we can deliver a victory, then we know the next one is assured. And we will have the momentum and we're going to put on the pressure upon them.
So as the People's National Party sought to make a case as to why their supporters need to go to the polls, General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell pointed to what he describes as blatant lies by the Andrew Holness-led administration. He also accused the JLP of stealing the People's National Party's ideas.
Mark Wallen said move the duty-free amount from $50, then thief it. Mark Wallen said the matter with guarantors the students' loan, then thief it. Mark Wallen said raise the income tax threshold, then thief it. All they are looking to do is to thief the ideas, but I want to tell them that time come now for them to leave that office. It is no time for the People's Party and the People's leader.
The PNP on Sunday unveiled their council and MP candidates for Hanover at the Racines High School.
The PNP is ready, and any time they call the election, them have to get a beating. Them have to get a beating.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Fire from a section of the Morant Bay landfill in St. Thomas has now been brought under control. The blaze, which started Sunday evening, had firefighters from the Yallis and Morant Bay fire departments battling the flames all night. The units encountered challenges due to the lack of resources.
Presently, the eastern section is under control. It is smoldering at the moment, but on the western side, we have some blazing. So, throughout the course of operation, with additional help, we can able to control this fire.
In the meantime, Councillor for the Morant Bay Division Rowan Brown says the ongoing fire at the landfill continues to be a nuisance to the surrounding communities. He says several proposals were made to have the dump removed, but it has fallen on deaf ears. He is calling on the government to intervene.
This is a nuisance to the whole community, the whole area. You know, as you're coming into Morant Bay, you're looking at the dump. On the left side is the cemetery. Sometimes you keep wondering, like, what's really happening here? Now, with the new town centre that I mentioned, we cannot have this here, you know. It makes no sense. There are some apartments right next to it that was built by Mr. Ross. And for him to get them rented and so on, it's like, it just can't happen. Because this is what happens all the time. The dump just flare up, you know, blaze up.
Still in St. Thomas, the municipal corporation is taking the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, to task over what it says is poor garbage collection in the parish. The details from Kerry and Simpson.
At the recent sitting of the St. Thomas Municipal Corporation, the National Solid Waste Management NSWMA reported that garbage collection in the parish is under control, but councillors do not agree.
I live in the parish and I get complained every day, but also I can judge it by the collection of my garbage. My garbage drums are at the front, you know, on my own, you know. So we must see when they're back home. I'm here to tell you, I have 2 drums right now. The mommy and my grandmother one live when she passed on Saturday. And the 2 drums are full through. Yeah. And we don't use, we don't have no home at daytime for use of the car. You guys took those what left and took to St. Thomas. None of those truck in any way, shape or form 60% up to standard for service. They were one truck that break down and roach go. 4 days. And 4 days? Well, no, not the one that roach go, the one up more enough. Yeah. The one that roach go to spend like 2 weeks there? Yes. Like 2 weeks.
The NSWMA representative Nigel Gooden hit back, contending that the agency was not aware that the parish had a challenge.
As far as we are concerned, we are collecting the garbage, whether you consider it to be 60% efficient trucks or not, the garbage is being collected. We're not getting the reports from St. Thomas anymore.
He further pointed to plans to supply the parish with compacted trucks. However, there have been delays.
We've got supplementary contractors to deal with St. Thomas, and St. Thomas is actually very good. It's only 1 load of backlog, and we have had in the backlog for a long time. We're a little bit of a challenge in the December period because, as you know, the volume of waste increases in December. But we have dealt with it and we're only down to 1 load.
Mr. Gooden says once the agency receives new garbage trucks, 1 will be assigned to the parish. Kerry and Simpson, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Pressure is mounting for the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, to break its silence on the recent interdiction of the employee who uncovered the breaches at the controversial apartment complex on Charlemont Drive in St. Andrew. Details in this report. What's the reason for his interdiction? The question being asked of the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, by a number of civil society groups and the Jamaica Environment Trust, JET. It follows a revelation on Sunday that the NEPA inspector who identified breaches at the Gwen at 11 Charlemont Drive was on Wednesday interdicted by the agency. The allegation against the employee is that of gross misconduct. According to a Gleaner article titled Scapegoat, Director of Human Resource Management and Development at NEPA, Carleen Hamilton-Reed, said the investigation was based on allegations that the employee brought NEPA into disrepute because of his failure to satisfactorily carry out his monitoring duties at the housing development at 11 Charlemont Drive in St. Andrew. But founder of JET, Diana McCauley, is not buying it.
No junior person takes a decision not to prosecute or not to prosecute. Now, I can't say anything about what the inspector, NEPA's inspector, is accused of doing. I have no knowledge of it whatsoever. But I also don't think he's a whistleblower. I think he did his job, From all accounts, he did his job. He reported the breaches. And it wasn't just him. There were other inspectors who went from NEPA and reported breaches. But I don't believe it is up to him to take the next step. I think the next step would have been taken at higher levels. So until we get further information, it looks like one of the people who did point out that there were breaches has been interdicted for reasons unknown. And that, of course, gives me lots of concerns.
Ms. McCauley, who was speaking on Power 106's Morning Agenda, says there are a myriad of questions which have been left unanswered that needs a response.
Who decided not to go ahead? Or was it just that the file languished, which is entirely possible as well? Because I have seen many, many such reports by field staff of breaches, which just no action is ever taken. No further action is ever taken. And without actually working at NEPA, I can't really tell you what the precise chain of command is or chain of decision making. And this is the kind of detail we never get when something like this happens.
In the meantime, attorney at law Peter Champagny KC told the Gleaner that the employee would almost seem that he is being sacrificed at the altar of expediency to satisfy the public's appetite for someone to be held to book. And the time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Guyana's Chief Fire Officer Gregory Wickham has been indicted for dereliction of duty in relation to a deadly fire which claimed 20 lives. This was highlighted in the report by the Guyanese Commission of Inquiry into the incident at the Madia Secondary School dorm earlier last year. The report further stated that if prudent action had been taken, there would have been sufficient time to put in place effective fire prevention systems. On the international scene, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday inaugurated a controversial Hindu temple built on the ruins of a historic mosque in the northern city of Ayodhya. The temple replaces a 16th century mosque torn down by Hindu mobs in 1992, sparking riots in which nearly 2,000 people died. Some Hindu seers and most of the opposition boycotted the ceremony, saying Mr. Modi was using it for political gain. Critics have also accused the government of exploiting a religious celebration in a country which, according to its constitution, is secular. Mr. Modi insists the temple heralds a new era for India. And at least 8 people have died and dozens are still missing after a landslide struck China's southwestern province of Yunnan on Monday. 47 people remain trapped. Chinese President Xi Jinping has ordered an all-out rescue in the area, which is experiencing sub-zero temperatures. More than 500 people were evacuated from homes and nearly 1,000 rescue workers were dispatched to the site. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
In Business Minute, the embattled firm Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, says more than $11 billion in client funds have been transferred to other financial entities. It says this is part of the first phase of interim management activities. In a notice to clients, once account holders give the directive, it says in short order, Phase 2 will commence, which involves the transfer of more funds. About 765 client accounts with a total of $10.5 billion in local financial securities were transferred to other entities. SSL says an additional transfer of $564 million in cash related to 165 clients was also dispersed. Further afield, Sony's Indian arm has scrapped a planned merger with Z Entertainment, which would have formed one of India's largest entertainment groups. The $10 billion merger, first announced 2 years ago, was set to combine more than 75 television channels, film assets, and 2 streaming platforms. Sony said merger conditions had not been met, but there have been reports of a disagreement over leadership. Now, in response, Z said it could take legal action against Sony. And that's it for the Business Minute. We head to a quick break. When we come back, Jordan Ford will have your midday sports report.